What if we told you that behind the bright lights of Moesha hid some of the darkest endings in Hollywood? They made us laugh, cry, and grow up with them. But while the cameras rolled, real-life struggles unfolded. Heart attacks, violent ends, shocking diagnoses, and silent battles with pain. Some were taken far too young. Others left behind haunting legacies we're only now beginning to understand. These are the 11 Moesha actors whose tragic deaths left a void no rerun can fill. Stay with us. Some of the names on this list will truly shock you. 1. Lamont Bentley as Hakeem Campbell. On the night of January 19, 2005, Lamont Bentley's promising life came to a horrifying end on a dark stretch of California freeway. Just 31 years old, the Moesha star was driving alone on Highway 118 near Simi Valley when, for reasons still unclear, his Mercedes-Benz sped through a stop sign, tore through a chain-link fence, and plunged down a ravine. The impact ejected him from the vehicle, directly into oncoming traffic. He was struck by up to 5 separate cars before emergency responders could reach him. Lamont was pronounced dead at 12:23 a.m. The autopsy revealed no trace of drugs or alcohol. It wasn't recklessness, it wasn't intoxication. It was a devastating accident that silenced a rising voice in Black Hollywood. Born Artemis Lamont Bentley in 1973 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Lamont had dreams bigger than the cold, Midwestern streets he came from. He was raised by his mother, Lois Bentley, who moved the family to Los Angeles in pursuit of her own musical aspirations. But it was Lamont who would eventually find the spotlight. While other kids played in the park, he was practicing autographs at age 12 and working odd jobs to help the family get by. He sold fish, bagged groceries, ushered in movie theaters, anything to keep the dream alive. Bentley's first taste of the industry came through commercials, including a memorable one for Starburst. From there, guest roles followed: NYPD Blue, Clueless, and Sister Sister. But his breakout came in 1994 with South Central, a critically acclaimed series that offered a gritty, real portrayal of black life in L.A. Then came the role that would define him for millions: Hakeem Campbell on Moesha. Hakeem wasn't just Moesha's best friend, he was every teen's lovable, goofy, always hungry sidekick. He was real. He was funny. He was Lamont, channeled through a character that brought joy into households across America. The Steve Harvey Show, The Parkers, and films like The Wash and Tales from the Hood followed. In the latter, Bentley shed his comedic skin to deliver a haunting performance as Crazy K, a violent gang member forced to confront his sins. The role proved he could handle more than laughs. He could disturb, move, and challenge an audience. But Lamont wasn't content with acting alone. Behind the scenes, he was carving a second path as a rapper, forming the group UPRIZE with fellow artists Cartier and Typhoon. He was on the cusp of relaunching himself as a multi-dimensional performer, an actor, musician, and producer. He was also a father to 2 daughters, who remained the center of his universe despite his growing success. Friends described him as loyal, humble, and fiercely protective of the people he loved. Actor DeAndre Bonds, his co-star in Tales from the Hood and real-life best friend, recalled him as one of the realest men I ever met in my life. Honest, down-to-earth, loyal. Bonds learned of Bentley's death while in prison. "I thought he was playing a joke," he said. "He always played jokes. But then I heard the crying, and I went crazy." At the time of his death, Lamont had just attended a screening of a short film he appeared in. It was supposed to be a new beginning. 2005 was set to be his year. "He was coming into his own," said his manager, Susan Ferris. "It's like a candle being snuffed right out." His memorial was held at Forest Lawn in Hollywood Hills, the final resting place for many of Hollywood's brightest lights. Bentley's name was added to a growing list of young black talents lost too soon, not to violence, but to fate's cruel randomness. 2. Ivette Wilson as Andel Wilkerson. Ivette Wilson died on June 14, 2012, after a painful battle with stage 4 cervical cancer. She was just 48. Her death sent shockwaves through fans of 1990s black sitcoms, especially Moesha, where she played Andell Wilkerson, the no-nonsense, warm-hearted owner of The Den, the teen hangout that anchored so many episodes. She reprised the same role in the spin-off The Parkers, becoming one of the few characters to appear across both series. But behind the laughter she brought to millions, Ivette was quietly fighting for her life. In her final years, Wilson endured not just cancer, but kidney failure and multiple transplants. Her longtime friend, Jeffrey Pittle, revealed that she'd battled illness for years and had run out of money trying to survive. He created a fundraiser for her medical expenses, but even as donations came in, time was running out. She was a fighter to the end, he wrote. Her talent, humor, and amazing friendship will be sorely missed. Born in Los Angeles, Wilson graduated from San Jose State University before diving into comedy. She got her start on Def Comedy Jam, then scored roles in films like Friday, House Party 3, and Don't Be a Menace. Her breakout came in 1993 with the sitcom Thea, also starring Brandy, foreshadowing their later work together on Moesha. On screen, she was the big sister figure, the wise friend, the comic relief. Off-screen, she was battling a cruel disease in silence. When news of her death broke, tributes flooded in. Jamie Foxx tweeted, "God bless you, Ivette Wilson. Tears in my eyes. Keep God laughing." Marlon Wayans called her always a sweetheart. And Shar Jackson, her Moesha co-star and close friend, tweeted through heartbreak, "Oh God, my heart is so unbelievably broken. I want to thank all my Tweeties for their prayers, but God has chosen to take my sister Ivette home." 3. Bernie Mack as Uncle Bernie. Bernie Mack, one of comedy's most unforgettable voices, died on August 9, 2008, at just 50 years old. While the official cause was complications from pneumonia, his passing was the devastating final blow in a decades-long fight with sarcoidosis, an inflammatory disease that had quietly attacked his lungs since the 1980s. Though believed to be in remission by 2005, the illness left his immune system weakened. When a second bout of pneumonia struck in July 2008, it overwhelmed his body. Sedated and on a ventilator in Chicago's Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Bernie fought for over 2 weeks before his heart finally gave out. His wife Rhonda and daughter Janice were by his side. Her last words to him were, "I'll take care of you. Just don't die." Bernie Mac wasn't just a comic, he was a force. Born Bernard Jeffrey McCullough in Chicago's tough South Side in 1957, he endured loss early. His mother died when he was 16, and by his 20s he'd also lost his brother, father, and grandmother. Raised in hardship, Bernie turned to humor to cope. "I came from a place where there wasn't a lot of joy," he once said, "so I tried to make people laugh." He paid his dues, working factory jobs by day, telling jokes on street corners and in clubs by night. After gaining attention in Mo Money and Friday, Bernie exploded with the original Kings of Comedy tour. His raw, fearless delivery won over audiences and caught the eye of Hollywood. In 2001, he debuted The Bernie Mac Show, which won a Peabody Award and earned him Emmy nominations. He broke sitcom rules by speaking directly to the audience, telling stories from his real life raising his sister's kids. That same year, he joined Ocean's 11, holding his own alongside Clooney and Pitt. But Bernie's health struggles never stopped. As he filmed hits like Bad Santa, Transformers, and Soul Men, he also quietly underwent treatments that left him vulnerable to infection. After his death, his family raised questions about delayed hospital care, even filing a lawsuit later dropped. Few fans knew the full extent of his pain. He hid it well behind the smile. Bernie made brief TV appearances, too, including on Moesha, where his comedic timing lit up the screen. Though it was just a cameo, It connected him to the growing wave of black sitcoms that shaped the 90s, cementing his place as not just a comedian, but a cultural voice. Bernie Mac was laid to rest in his hometown, mourned by thousands. His daughter carries his memory through her podcast, and his fans still quote his lines with reverence. In the words of Ice Cube, "Today and tomorrow will never be as funny as yesterday without Bernie Mac." 4. Ricky Harris as J.W. Ricky Harris died suddenly of a heart attack on December 26, 2016, at the age of 54. The comedian, actor, and voice artist had survived a previous heart attack 2 years earlier, but this time there was no second chance. Raised in Long Beach, California, Ricky was the son of a preacher and a childhood friend of Snoop Dogg. The two sang in the church choir before breaking out into very different careers, though their paths kept crossing. Ricky lent his voice to some of the wildest skits on Snoop's iconic 1993 album Doggy Style, including the raunchy W Balls, and his signature comedic style became part of the West Coast rap identity. He also voiced characters in Grand Theft Auto: San Andreas, adding to his underground cult status. But Harris wasn't just a voice in the background. After starting out on Def Comedy Jam, he broke into film in Poetic Justice alongside Tupac Shakur and Janet Jackson, and later held his own in Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. On television, he racked up credits in CSI Miami, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, and, yes, Moesha, where he had a memorable guest role on the hit UPN show that starred Brandy Norwood. His connection to Moesha placed him squarely in the heart of 90s black television alongside other major cultural touchstones. Though he made people laugh for decades, Ricky Harris struggled with health issues in silence. His early death robbed the world of a performer who had just begun to get recognition beyond his community. Survived by his mother, ex-wife, and 2 daughters, Ricky left behind a legacy of laughter, streetwise charm, and raw, often underappreciated talent. 5. Merlin Santana as Ohagi. Merlin Santana was only 26 when his life was stolen by a single bullet to the head on November 9, 2002. The rising star, best known for playing Romeo on The Steve Harvey Show, was sitting in the passenger seat of a car in Los Angeles when 2 men opened fire. His friend, actor Brandon Adams, who was driving, survived, but Santana died instantly. The bullet had pierced the car's trunk, back seat, and headrest before striking him. Behind the attack was 19-year-old Damian Gates, misled by a lie from his 15-year-old girlfriend, Monique King, who falsely claimed Santana had made sexual advances. That accusation was proven untrue, but it was enough to trigger a deadly ambush. Gates was sentenced to life in prison, and King was tried as an adult, receiving 10 years in juvenile custody. Her fabricated story not only took a life, it ended a career that had just begun to blossom. Born in Washington Heights to Dominican parents, Santana got his start modeling at age 3. He rose through the ranks of child acting, winning hearts as Stanley, Rudy Huxtable's sweet boyfriend on The Cosby Show. But fans of Moesha will remember him as Ohagi, a recurring role that added charm and conflict to the show's portrait of young black life. Santana's charisma stood out even in brief appearances, and it hinted at the depth he would bring to later roles. His big breakthrough came as Romeo Santana on The Steve Harvey Show, a role that earned him NAACP Image Award and Alma Award nominations. An Afro-Latino actor in an industry slow to recognize diverse voices, Merlin brought both authenticity and magnetism to the screen. Off-camera, he battled industry pressures and private demons, but he remained committed to expanding his creative reach. He had just wrapped a VH1 film with Toni Braxton, appeared in Eddie Murphy's Showtime, and was working on a hip-hop album. When he died, fans of Moesha were hit especially hard. Santana was the first from the cast to pass away, and his death cast a long shadow over the show's legacy. He was laid to rest in the Bronx, leaving behind a daughter who would grow up knowing her father only through his work. His murder wasn't just a tragedy. It was a stolen future. 6. Kobe Bryant as Terry Hightower. On January 26, 2020, Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna were killed in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California, along with 7 others. They were en route to a youth basketball tournament, part of Kobe's post-retirement passion as a coach and mentor. The crash, attributed to poor weather and pilot disorientation, stunned the world. Kobe wasn't just an NBA legend with 5 championships and 2 Olympic gold medals. He was a global icon, a father, a storyteller. But few remember his early brush with fame outside basketball, a guest role on Moesha. In 1996, the same year he was drafted to the Lakers and made headlines for taking singer Brandy to prom, Kobe appeared in Moesha as Terry Hightower, a talented high school basketball player struggling to pass the SATs. The episode, titled The Whistleblower, wasn't just a cute crossover. It was Kobe's first appearance as a cultural figure. Charming and self-assured, he held his own beside Brandy, the show's rising star. It was a glimpse of how comfortably he moved between the worlds of sports and entertainment. That year marked the start of a complex public journey. Kobe was immediately celebrated for his talent, but he also faced setbacks. In 2003, he was accused of sexual assault in Colorado. Though the criminal case was dropped and a civil suit settled, the scandal nearly ruined his career. Endorsements disappeared, his reputation took a major blow, and many fans turned their backs. But Kobe responded with relentless focus. He rebuilt his image through discipline, excellence, and time. His personal life was no less complicated. Kobe had a strained relationship with his parents, especially after they tried to sell his memorabilia without permission. In a 2016 interview, he admitted they had stopped speaking. "Our relationship is scar." It was a rare glimpse into the pain behind his polished exterior. After retiring in 2016, Kobe didn't fade from view. He won an Oscar for his animated short Dear Basketball, authored children's books, and launched a production company. But his proudest role was being a father to 4 daughters. His bond with Gianna was especially strong. He coached her team and called her Mamba Cheetah. Footage of them courtside, discussing plays, showed a different side of Kobe, warm, patient, nurturing. That future ended in tragedy. The crash that killed Kobe and Gianna sparked mourning across the globe, comparable only to the deaths of icons like Princess Diana or Michael Jackson. In LA, fans created sprawling memorials outside what was once Staples Center, honoring the Black Mamba not just for his game, but for his humanity. His appearance on Moesha may have lasted only minutes, but it captured something deeper: Kobe's early desire to be more than an athlete. He wanted to inspire, to entertain, to lead, and in many ways, he did. 7. Maya Angelou as Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou passed away on May 28, 2014, at her home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, at the age of 86. Though her death was quiet, her legacy rang out with force. She had lived a life defined by trauma, transformation, and truth. Poet, performer, professor, and activist, Angelou remained a cultural force even in her final years. And in a surprising late-career moment, she brought her wisdom to television, appearing on Moesha in a role that bridged generations. In the Season 5 episode Fired Up, Angelo played herself, marking a rare on-screen appearance. Brandy Norwood's character, Moesha, poses as a reporter from Vibe magazine to interview the literary icon. Angelo, seeing through the ruse, doesn't scold her. Instead, she offers grace, poetry, and challenge. "Education," she says, "is your passport to freedom." Moesha ultimately loses the job but gains clarity. She wants to go to college. And though her parents never find out, it was Maya Angelou who lit that fire. For fans of the show, the moment stood out. A poet who once recited at a presidential inauguration was now mentoring black teens on network TV. Angelo's presence on Moesha wasn't just a cameo, it was symbolic. The show had welcomed singers and stars, but Angelo represented something deeper: literary legacy, black intellectual power, and womanhood forged in fire. Her life had been a series of reinventions. Born Marguerite Annie Johnson in 1928, she was raped at age 7, stopped speaking for 5 years, and found her voice through literature. "My voice was a killing machine," she once said, but it became her salvation. Before she was a poet, she was everything else: a nightclub singer, fry cook, sex worker, dancer, and the first black woman cable car conductor in San Francisco. She lived in Africa, acted in Porgy and Bess, wrote protest essays, and raised her son as a single mother. Her 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, chronicled it all with raw honesty. It became a classic, though often banned, and launched her into literary fame. In 1993, Angelo's reading of On the Pulse of Morning at President Bill Clinton's inauguration brought her voice to millions. It was a defining moment in her public life. Honors followed, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama in 2011. Yet she remained grounded. She taught at Wake Forest, published cookbooks, directed films, and mentored countless young women, including Oprah Winfrey. Her health declined in her final years, but she kept working, writing in longhand, lecturing, and appearing in projects like Medea's Family Reunion. And on Moesha, she passed the baton. Her guest role wasn't flashy, but it was powerful. In just one episode, she offered something timeless, a spark for the next generation. 8. DMX, the rapper born Earl Simmons, died on April 9, 2021, at the age of 50 after a catastrophic heart attack left him in a vegetative state for days. DMX had long lived on the edge, surviving trauma, addiction, and incarceration, all while delivering some of the rawest music hip-hop has ever known. But few remember that the same man who shouted, "Y'all gon' make me lose my mind," once appeared on Moesha, a striking reminder of how deeply his presence touched pop culture far beyond rap. In the Moesha episode titled Gimme a Break, DMX played himself, performing live in Santa Barbara as Moesha and her best friend Niecy sneak off to catch the show. He appears in full DMX mode, white tank top, heavy chains, aggressive energy. For a show known for its family-friendly tone, booking DMX was bold. Yet he fit the moment perfectly, a real-life symbol of struggle, grit, and unfiltered authenticity. That brief TV cameo offered a glimpse into a softer layer of the man known for barking into microphones and battling demons in every verse. DMX's own childhood was a horror story. Born in Baltimore in 1970, he suffered brutal abuse from his mother's partners and lived in group homes. He battled severe asthma that sent him to the emergency room many nights and survived being hit by a drunk driver as a child. But the deepest wound may have come from someone he trusted. At 14, an older mentor he looked up to gave him a blunt laced with crack cocaine. DMX had never smoked, drank, or even cursed before that moment. That betrayal, as he described it years later in tears, created the addiction that haunted him for the rest of his life. "A monster was born," he said. "I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy." Despite the pain, DMX became a sensation. His debut album, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, dropped in 1998 and exploded. He followed it with a string of platinum records and hits like Rough Riders Anthem, Party Up, and Who We Be. He was nominated for multiple Grammys, won an American Music Award, and appeared in blockbuster films alongside Jet Li and Steven Seagal. His voice, raspy, wounded, angry, was unmistakable. But behind the stardom, his life remained volatile. He served time for tax evasion and weapons charges, struggled publicly with sobriety, and re-entered rehab multiple times. In April 2021, after collapsing from a heart attack reportedly triggered by a drug overdose, DMX was hospitalized and placed on life support. He had been deprived of oxygen for nearly 30 minutes. Hundreds gathered outside White Plains Hospital to pray for him, blasting his music and raising X-shaped arms in tribute. But tests showed no brain activity. On April 9th, surrounded by family, he died. 9. Robert Guom as Arthur. Robert Guom passed away on October 24, 2017, at the age of 89 after a long battle with prostate cancer. But behind the accolades and Emmy wins was a life marked by pain, perseverance, and profound reinvention. Born Robert Peter Williams in 1927 in St. Louis, Missouri, he was abandoned by his alcoholic mother and raised by his grandmother. He grew up in poverty during the Great Depression, served in the U.S. Army, and only discovered theater after the war when he used the GI Bill to study at St. Louis University and Washington University. Guillaume's early years were a far cry from the fame he would later achieve. He worked in menial jobs and only found his footing on stage in black theater groups like Cleveland's Karamu House. It was there he changed his name, feeling Robert Williams was too ordinary. From there, he climbed, first through musicals like Guys and Dolls and Pearly, then through television in the 1970s, where he made his mark as the iconic Benson Dubois on Soap and its spin-off Benson. The role was historic. Guillaume was one of the first black actors to lead a successful primetime series, earning 2 Emmy Awards. But tragedy struck in 1999 when he suffered a stroke on the set of the show Sports Night. Initially, unable to walk without a cane, he underwent intensive therapy and eventually returned to acting, even incorporating the stroke into his character's storyline. The event shifted his focus to advocacy, speaking out about stroke prevention, especially in the African American community. It was a sobering chapter in a life already defined by overcoming odds. One of Guillaume's lesser-known but deeply meaningful appearances came in Moesha. In the Thanksgiving episode All This in Turkey 2, he played Arthur, a wise family friend. For a show that centered young black voices, his presence was a generational bridge, an elder statesman lending grace and dignity to a new era. In a quiet but powerful performance, he reminded viewers that true wisdom comes not just from survival, but from reflection. Whether voicing Rafiki in The Lion King or playing Frederick Douglass on screen, Robert Guillaume never settled for typecasting. He brought complexity to every role, lawyers, teachers, politicians, often as the lone black man in a white-dominated cast. 10th, Janette Dubois as Mrs. Moss. Janette Dubois died unexpectedly in her sleep on February 17, 2020. She was 74 years old. Just weeks earlier, she had appeared vibrant and lively, reuniting with her Good Times co-stars during a nostalgic ABC Live special. But beneath the sparkle of her final public appearance was a life filled with unspoken grief, resilience, and quiet trailblazing that changed television forever. Born in Philadelphia and raised in Brooklyn, Dubois emerged from the theater world, where she starred in iconic Broadway productions like A Raisin in the Sun and Golden Boy alongside Sammy Davis Jr. But it was television that cemented her as a household name. She became the first black actress to land a regular role on a daytime soap, Love of Life, a groundbreaking moment for representation. That was just the beginning. In 1974, she burst onto Good Times as Willona Woods, the fashionable, wisecracking neighbor who practically stole every scene she was in. More than comic relief, Willona was fierce, protective, and loving, a surrogate mother to Janet Jackson's character Penny, both on-screen and off. Decades later, Jackson would describe Dubois as someone who broke stereotypes and changed the landscape for black women in entertainment. But Dubois wasn't just a scene stealer. She was a voice that echoed through generations. In 1975, she co-wrote and sang one of television's most iconic theme songs, Movin' On Up, for the Jeffersons. With that one performance, her voice became the anthem of Black upward mobility in American pop culture. Behind the scenes, Dubois battled for roles that portrayed Black women as dynamic, vibrant, and powerful. She lent her voice to Eddie Murphy's The PJs, winning 2 Emmy Awards. She co-founded the Pan-African Film Festival, championing Black cinema long before diversity was trending. And in the 1990s, she brought her wisdom and warmth to a new generation by guest starring on Moesha, playing Mrs. Moss in the episode Mentor, a fitting role for a woman who had mentored so many both on and off screen. Though beloved for her laugh and charisma, Dubois carried quiet heartbreak, too. She raised 3 children while navigating the cutthroat world of entertainment. She once said that being funny was how she coped with everything life threw at her. 11th, Estelle Harris as Frances Howie. Estelle Harris, the unforgettable voice behind Mrs. Potato Head and the hilariously overbearing Estelle Costanza on Seinfeld, died on April 2, 2022, of natural causes at the age of 93. Her death marked the end of a one-of-a-kind comedic legacy, built not just on her iconic screech, but on a deep well of timing, pathos, and tragedy, often hiding behind the laughs. Though audiences remember her best for shouting at George and Frank Costanza in 27 episodes of Seinfeld, Harris's road to fame was long and winding. Born Estelle Nussbaum in Manhattan in 1928, she gave up her early dreams of acting to raise 3 children in suburban Long Island. It wasn't until she was nearing 50 that she took the plunge into professional acting, after years of doing dinner theater and commercials just to escape the stifling routine of domestic life. "I had to get out of diapers and bottles and blah-blah baby talk," she joked once. Her late-blooming career exploded in the 1990s. She brought warmth, fire, and comic chaos to Seinfeld, often channeling deep emotional pain under her famously shrill delivery. "I play her with misery underneath," Harris said of Estelle Costanza, a character she insisted was more tragic than comic. She had everything bad. Same apartment, same husband, loser son. Outside of Seinfeld, she stole scenes in shows like Night Court, Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and ER, while delighting younger audiences in the Toy Story franchise. One often overlooked gem was her guest spot on Moesha, where she played Frances Howie, a pushy commercial agent trying to turn Moesha into a star. It was a fitting role for someone once dubbed the Queen of Commercials, with more than 25 national TV spots per year during her peak. Estelle Harris lived a second act most performers only dream of, full of cartoon voices, sitcom mayhem, and the kind of fame that spans generations. They lit up our screens and shaped a generation, but behind the laughter and storylines of Moesha, some of its most beloved stars faced heartbreak, struggle, and untimely ends. Their legacies deserve more than silence. Did you grow up watching Moesha? Which performance do you think hasn't gotten the recognition it truly deserves? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to help keep their memory alive, be sure to like this video, share it with fellow fans, and subscribe for more untold stories from the stars we still miss.